right. Hi, everyone. Very good morning to all of you. We are just going to take a few more minutes before we get started. So, looking forward to more people to join on the call. Hi, good morning, everyone. Wow. Okay. Awesome. So nice to see so many people on the call. I think we have about 176 people on this call today. So a huge number. How are you guys doing? Right. So just give me a little emoji or a thumbs up or a smiley face to tell me how you are feeling today. Very great. Yeah. Awesome. Cool. So I see so many people joining the call today from different parts of the world as well, not just Malaysia. So welcome and thank you all for being here today. Wow, we got lots of celebration in the chat box. So I'm assuming you guys have had a very good new year, right? A great annual leave, I suppose, or holiday last year, and back to work. Good morning. Awesome. Lots of hearts. Okay. Happy New Year. Exactly. Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the call. Okay, we're just going to wait probably another one more minute before we have everyone on the call, and then we can get started. Hi. Wow, we had a donut day in the office yesterday, Camila says. Awesome. How was it? What kind of donuts did you guys have? Happy New Year. Ashley. Morning. Awesome. Kalima's office had a donut day, so hopefully you guys had lots of fun. Hi, Brendan. Good morning. Okay, all right. So we still have people joining. I think we have about 270 people on this call. Hi, Hong. Good morning. Hi, Patricia, Justin. Happy New Year, guys. Happy New Year, everyone. Okay, all right. So I think we shall get started. My name is Jess. I'm going to be your speaker for today. Thank you so much for joining this call. I'm really excited to have a fun session with all of you guys. Looking forward to hear from you as well. So keep the chat coming in the chat box. I'm always really excited to hear what you guys have to say and what you guys have to add. If you want to have your own little discussion in the chat box, that's also fine. Right. So we are going to be talking about goal getting in today's session, or goal setting, right, for 2024. It is the second week of the year. For some of you, you are surviving this year, or at least this week. And for some of you, maybe it's more of a lighter week, just because it's the start of the month, right? So it's really good to see all of you joining the call for today's session, right? So just some, very brief housekeeping rules before we get started. So if you have any questions or you want to share your thoughts, feel free to do that in the chat box. We also have some polls, some questions that's going to be kind of popping up for you. So feel free to participate in those polls as well. It would be really awesome to get you guys and to hear from you guys as well. If you have any specific questions, you can type at in the chat box, Jess, my name, and I would be happy to answer them. If I do skip them, don't worry, we'll have a Q&A at the end, and I'll be happy to take those questions as well. If you want to remain anonymous and you want to send me a private message, you can do so by clicking at the private message. So you can click on the plus at the bottom or send an at Jess, and then you will get a little box for you to tick which says send as a private message, and then you can type in your questions there as well. All right. Also, don't worry, the handout will be available for you to download as a tab at the end of the session for today. So, if you wanted to have more access to the webinar, you will have this presentation as a PDF. Okay. All right. Shall we get started? I'm sure you guys are excited. Wow, we have about 340 people on the call. So good morning. Yes, thank you for joining us. So nice to see all of you today. So just a very quick and brief introduction about myself. My name is Jess. I am a mental health coach with Naluri. So I am a registered and licensed therapist. And my master's is in counseling. And if you notice, my bachelor's is in physiotherapy, right? So a little bit of a switch, a change over there. But really enjoying and loving what I do now as a therapist. Probably a 10-year decision to come to that choice, but having that sense of purpose and meaning has been really important as well, right? In case you're wondering, what are some of the things that I specialize in as a therapist? So I focus a lot more on trauma-related cases, so childhood trauma, adverse trauma, abuse, PTSD, anxiety, depression, ADHD. And I also do a lot of work with couples, so marriage and relationship therapy as well. For those of you who know a little bit about therapy, I predominantly use CBT, which is also known as cognitive behavioral therapy, and also EMDR, which is used to help trauma-based clients. Okay, so that's a little bit about me for today. So I'm going to ask you guys a question since we are all on this call today, talking about goals and talking about New Year's resolution as we start the wonderful 2024. I'm going to get Shannon to post up a poll, right? And this question is, have you set your goals for 2024? So feel free to answer yes or no in the chat box. All right, so I can see people voting yes and no. Okay. So for now, we've got almost a 50-50 ratio, right? Going up. Some of you say yes, some of you say no. Right, keep the votes coming in. I think we've got about 52% of our audience who have answered. Anyone else, if you've left out, just feel free to give us a vote. Okay. All right, so we do have a majority of about 55% of you guys who have set some goals for 2024. And about 46% of you haven't, right? So no judgment here. This session is no way to make you feel, bad or terrible if you haven't set a goal. But if you've set a goal, that's also awesome for you, right? So I'm so glad to see those of you who haven't, who have set your goal, and hopefully by today's session, you get a little bit more inspiration on how to actually set some goals for this coming year. Okay, so when we talk about goals, let's first define what the meaning of goals are, right? What does goals actually mean, right? So goals is any desired outcome that would not happen without you doing something, right? So I'm going to highlight the word doing, right? So the doing part is very, very important. So in order for you to get a outcome, or in order for you to get a decision, it requires you to do a little bit of work, right? You have to do something about it. So we have, some of you who've set goals for this year. I think 55% of you guys have set goals. Try to look back at these goals that you've set and really ask yourself this question: is there the doing part of any of the goals that you've set, right? For example, setting a goal like I want to get six pack abs this year, or I want to get out of debt this year. That requires you to do something, right? And so that's a really great goal to have. For example, I want to watch, some series this year. That's not really a goal because there isn't much of resistance, right? A goal requires a little bit of resistance, a bit of friction, right? It requires you to actually make some sort of change, right? And it requires you to do something different, right? So there has to be that little part of resistance, that little part of friction when you do set a goal, right? So let's just unpack some goals that I've set for myself for this year, right? Very simple, three main goals that I'm going to be referring to throughout the course of today's webinar as well. So the first goal that I've set for myself is, I want to create more time for hobbies and for fun. I really want to spend a little bit more time gardening this year. I found my love and my passion for plants last year, and I realized that I actually am pretty good at it, right? Of course, I did kill a few plants along the way, but in general, that's really something that I really want to cultivate for this year. The second one for me is to make better health choices, right? So in terms of eating right, in terms of moving my body at least, a couple times a week, which I have started for the last part of last year, and I hope to kind of, keep that going for this year as well. And then the last one is, in terms of mindset, right? Having more clarity, having more focus, and I really want to cultivate a really good journaling, process this year, right? Does anyone journal? Give me a thumbs up, or let me know. Does anyone journal here in this? Yeah, awesome. So we do have quite a bit of people journaling. Awesome. Okay, so it's so great to know I'm not alone. It's definitely something to, put into your daily practice. It does take a bit of time to kind of get into that routine of journaling, whether it's, at the start of your day or even at the end of your day. So Matthias says, my goals, I want to participate from 5 km to 10 km run this year. Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Matthias. That's an awesome goal to have, right? 5 to 10 km. Awesome. Okay. Awesome. Now, let's go into the next part. Now, what should goals actually include, right? When we think of goals, I think sometimes it can be so daunting, especially for the majority, the 40+% of you guys who haven't set a goal. It might be coming from a place because we don't know how to start setting a goal, right? We don't really know how to go about that process. And it just seems absolutely daunting, and we don't know where to start, where to begin, and how to go about it. So let me give you some tips on how you can actually start setting some goals. So take yourself back to when you were a little child, when you were a little girl or a little boy. Remember how you used to dream about your life, about your future, about you as being this adult version of yourself. I know I remember growing up, I used to draw pictures of how I wanted my house to look like, right? I draw pictures of, my family and how many children I wanted to have and what I was going to do as my ambition. And I think sometimes we forget to dream, right? So what we want to do is really allow yourself to start dreaming again, dreaming of this version of yourself, this future version of yourself, right? And what you're going to do is scale it down from there, right? So we start with the dream and then we scale it down from there. So, meaning to say, okay, how am I, or what am I going to do to start achieving these goals, right? What can I do? What can I actually do to actually reach that dreams that I have, right? So that's one really great way to start. Another thing is think of the end. I know this is a little bit morbid to think of the end, But if you don't know where to start, think about your death. Think about when your life comes to an end. What do you want to wish you achieved, right? What do you want to be known for? What are all the things in your bucket list that you wish you had done or you wish you could have done? But didn't really get the chance to do. So, for example, it could be family time, spending more time with our loved ones, right? It could be learning a music instrument, for example. I've always wanted to learn the guitar, but never really took the time to go and figure out lessons and how to go about it. So think of the end and then kind of see how you would be able to actually be remembered or wish that those accomplishments and achievements were done at the end of your life, right? The next one is getting quiet, right? I know we live in this rat race in this hustle bustle world. Depending on even which country you're from, I think it's the same, across the globe, whether you're in Indonesia now, or you're in Vietnam, or you're in KL in Malaysia. We all live in this rat race, this hustle bustle of life, and a lot of times we forget to slow down. We forget to be present and really enjoy the smaller things in our life, right? So be quiet. And I think one of the most important sounds in the world is actually our voice, right? But oftentimes we don't listen to that voice because everything else seems a lot more louder and a lot more attractive, right? So one of the ways to actually start doing that is probably, a meditation practice or a mindful practice. Does anyone know what is the meaning of mindfulness? Has anyone heard of mindfulness? What comes to your mind when you think of being mindful? Because we hear this word a lot, right? We hear people talking about mindfulness, but what does it actually mean? Okay, Dashni says being present. Justin says self awareness, right? Being purposeful with your actions, being present. Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Nadia and Chuan Ting as well. Okay. Zakina says mind and body are present at the same time. Be in touch with your own feelings. Thanks for sharing, Farah. Okay, Shahida says living in the present moment. Ah, okay, self love, being in the now. Awesome, absolutely. So everyone get a point correct. Yeah, focus, self love, and betterment. Right. So it's being present. It's being purposeful. It's being in that moment. Think of your five senses. For example, when we have a slice of pizza, how many times do we just kind of like shove food in our mouth without actually being aware of whether or not we're chewing the food or we're just kind of swallowing it down, or we actually savoring these moments? Do we actually know what the food tastes like, what the food smells like? Oftentimes we don't, right? Because we're not being present. So I think things like being more mindful, meditating, even going for long walks helps us actually process and listen to that still small little voice, which is deep here, down here, right? Which is the most important voice, right? And I think another thing to also keep in mind is the 1-2 goals, right? This is also known as the concordant goals. This is the type of goals that we are personally invested in, right? It's that willingness to make it happen. So I think earlier, Matthias, you shared that you would be doing a 5 km to 10 km run this year. So I think that's really, really awesome. But want to understand from you, what is that personal investment in that goal, right? Why is it so important to you, right? Why are you willing to make it happen? Because 5 km, 10 km is pretty long. So really asking yourself, where is that personal investment coming from? All right. Okay, so I'm going to share with you guys this little technique. It's called the third person perspective technique. Has anyone um, heard of this before? Has anyone heard about? No? It's pretty new. Awesome. Okay, so let me share with you what this third person perspective technique is all about. It's done by a study in Cornell University, and it has proven to actually help us crystallize and achieve some of these goals for ourselves. Now, in the beginning, when you try doing this, it might be a little strange, it might be a little bit awkward. Because it requires you to talk out loud. Okay, for those of us who talk out loud in the car, we have conversations with ourselves at home or in the car. This might feel completely normal, but for some of us who are not used to actually vocalizing our thoughts and we kind of have it all here, this would be a really interesting practice to have as well. So, you are going to talk about your goals out loud, okay? But you're going to talk about it in a third person perspective, right? Just give it a try. I've put a little script here of my goals. So going back to the goals that I shared with you guys in the beginning that I want to have for this year. Okay, so Jess does not want six pack abs, right? That's not something I'm looking at for this year, okay? Because Jess does not want to do the work to make it happen. But Jess would love to spend more time gardening. She would like to see herself cut down on unhealthy foods and maybe even try and compete at a CrossFit competition this year. Jess would like to achieve a solid practice of journaling every morning. Right. So, how does that sound like? It almost seems like I'm not talking about myself, right? It almost seems like, who is this person? Is this really who I'm talking about? So, we can see when we use the third person perspective, it almost feels like we're not talking about ourselves, but it almost seems like we can achieve these things. It almost seems like, wow, these goals that I've set for myself, they really come into fruition. They seem a lot more tangible. They seem a lot more crystal clear, right? They seem a lot more achievable, right? So I'm going to give you guys maybe a minute or two just to try this little practice. All right, wherever you are, if you're sitting in your cubicle, or if you're sitting next to a colleague of yours who is also on this call, just give it a try. Right, any goal that you've set. For those of you who've not set goals, that's fine, but try to make up a goal, maybe one or two goals, and try this little exercise. So use your name in a third person perspective and just talk about the goal and what you want to achieve for this year. All right. So I'll give you guys a minute or two. Tell me how you go in the chat box. Right? Do you find this helpful? Does it work? Does it not work? How are you guys going with it? Interesting, right? Right. It's a strange feeling in the beginning, but once you actually start doing it, it becomes sort of like a habit, right? Anyone else want to share their thoughts? I'm very negative about myself. I must say it's still interesting though. Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Evelyn. So what you're noticing when you do the third person perspective technique is that you might be a little harsh on yourself, right? You might be a little hard. You might, be very strict towards yourself, right? So that's a really good self awareness, because now what you have to do is be a lot more kinder to yourself, right? Not to be as hard or harsh or even negative, right? No, so the first one was just me giving an example, the script here. If you want to remove, don't want something, that's also fine, but just talk about your goals in general. Jihan, thanks for asking that question. Yes. Yes, that was something you want. Yes, Tia, absolutely right, right? So I think this is a really great way to be kinder to yourself. So thank you so much for sharing. I wouldn't say this about other people, so why would I say it about myself, right? That's a great way to kind of spot when we're being really hard or harsh on ourselves and to be a lot more kinder, right? If I wouldn't say this to a loved one or a friend, um, should I be saying this about myself? Thank you for sharing, Tia. That's great. Okay, all right. Moving on to the next portions, right? A goal actually has two components. Usually, the first component is called the will, right? And the second component is usually called the way, right? So every goal that we set should have the will and it should have the way. The will is the motivational, emotional aspect of that behavioral change, right? It's what is going to drive you, it's what's going to motivate you. It's where that personal investment is coming from. In other words, it's the big why, right? Why are we setting this goal? Why do we want to set this goal? So we can see some questions there at the bottom. Why is this goal important to us, right? Why do we want to change? Okay, and why now, right? So, for example, if I'm taking the gardening goal that I had for myself this year, it's important to me because I find a lot of what I do as a therapist is working with a lot of emotions, and a lot of times they are very serious emotions, right? And so, taking the time for me to relax, to wind down, to also just be in nature a little bit and help me to relax is a really great thing that I want to cultivate, right? Why do I want to change? Because I feel like I want to be more present this year, right? We live in a world where busy, 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 busy is what we always say when someone asks how we are doing. And so I want to take a little bit more time to be more creative, right? To spend more time doing the things that I enjoy and have fun with it. Why now? Because I think it's time. As I mentioned last year, I got into the whole gardening, world. It was very new to me, and this year I just want to kind of continue that as well, right? Okay, then we go on to the way. The way is the cognitive and informational aspect of a behavioral change. So, in other words, it is the how, right? The very big how. How would we achieve this goal, right? How is this behavior change going to unfold? So, for me, probably I'm going to spend a little bit more time researching on how I can plant flowers from seeds. That's something that I've not done last year, but that's definitely something that I want to learn how to do. It does require a lot of skills, so I probably need to do a lot more research, talk to a lot of my plant parent friends to also get their opinions on certain types of plants that I want to cultivate, right? And what is the specific plan? That's where I am currently working on it, right? So when we actually break down these goals into these two components of the why and the how, it really puts things into perspective, right? It really helps us identify what is the motivation for these goals. Okay, all right, so moving on, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the mistakes that we make when we are setting goals, right? These are common mistakes. I think sometimes we don't even realize that we're doing it. So they might be subconscious mistakes that we make. So oftentimes we might be focusing on the how, right? We might be focusing on how to achieve that goal, but not the why. And the why is really important because that's where that motivation is coming from. That's where the drive is coming from. That's where the sustainability of that goal is coming from as well, right? Number two, I think sometimes we set way too many goals for ourselves. Has anyone done that? Give me a thumbs up if you've done that, because I've done that before. I think in the past years when I used to set goals, I used to set way too many goals. Right? I see everybody saying yes and all the thumbs up. That means, yeah, we've all done it. We've set like five, six, seven goals even, and it's just way too many, right? We want to learn Spanish, we want to learn a new sport, we want to be mindful, all within the same year. And, it's just too much, right? And one thing that you guys can take away from today's session is just setting one goal for yourself. That's more than enough, right? That one really specific, goal with the why and the how is all you need sometimes, right? So I would say 1 to 3 goals would be the best, right? Yeah, Ida says too ambitious. Sometimes we're a bit too ambitious. We want to do everything. We want to have everything. Yeah, okay. So we go on to the next one. When you define the goal, you miss the sweet spot. What is that sweet spot? So just now we talked about goals and goals having that bit of resistance, that bit of friction, right? So the goal shouldn't be too easy, right? And it shouldn't also be too big. It should just be right in that middle sweet spot where you still have that friction, you still have that resistance, but it's not breaking you apart. Now, the sweet spot looks differently for everyone, right? So try and not compare your goals with someone else because our tolerance to different things varies from human to human. So you would have to figure out what your sweet spot is, right? So maybe you've set a extremely hard goal for this year, and then maybe halfway through its, quarter two, quarter three of this year, you realize, I think that goal is, a little bit hard to achieve. Maybe I want to kind of bring it down a notch, right? That's completely fine, right? That's where you are figuring out where that sweet spot is, right? Where that perfect resistance and friction is as well, right? Okay. And then we go on to the fourth point, which is the goals are way too general. Yeah, sometimes we set goals that are so general, right? There's no specific measurements, there's no specific information on how we want to achieve it or by when we want to achieve these goals. I think a really great question to ask yourself is when would I know that I succeeded? Right? When would I know that I've reached this goal? So for me, if it's gardening, I when my flowers start blooming, right? When I'm able to see maybe, 3, 4, 5 flowers, then I know, wow, okay, I've reached that goal, right? So ask yourself that question, right? When would I know that I have reached that success, right? The fifth one, right, is the high-low range goals, right? So I think it's a lot easier when we say to ourselves, okay, I want to lose weight this year, for example, right? I want to lose 2 to 4 kilos this year versus I want to lose 3 kilos. Do you see the difference, right? I want to start a journaling practice of trying to journal maybe 3 to 7 days a week, right? I want to see my plant have 1 to 10 roses at the end of this year. So we see like there's a range that we're giving ourselves, and it almost takes off this pressure that we have been putting on ourselves. And we say, okay, 3 kilos, right? Um, Journaling must be 5 times a week, right? I must, have 15 flowers bloom in that season for that plant. So it takes a lot, it takes away that pressure, right? It takes away the pressure to actually feel like we need to conform to those specific number. So you give yourself a range and you kind of work in between that range. So if you don't lose 3 kilos, you lost two, right? That's better than nothing, but you're starting somewhere. Okay, so Sandra says, is it better to journal in a physical notebook or app? I wouldn't say there is one that is better or not. I do know some clients who prefer typing or they prefer putting it onto their laptop. It's just the way their brain works. But I also know a lot of clients who like to physically hand write in their journal as well. I think there's a lot of connection you get when you put a pen and paper with your thoughts, right? There's something about writing down your thoughts as you process it in that moment. So I wouldn't say there is a better one, but it depends on what works for you. All right. I hope that answers your question. All right, so we go on to the next part, which are what are the 4 reasons that we set goals? So these are pretty straightforward. They make you happier, right? Don't you think that today's session, when we start talking about goals, it becomes less daunting? Maybe in the beginning, when you first jumped on this call, it's a bit worrying, like, I don't really want to talk about goals. I feel really overwhelmed with goals. But when we actually start talking about goals, it actually puts a lot more perspective into what we want for this year, right? They suppress negative emotions, right? This is something that I often see um, in my practice with clients as well. A lot of times, fear, depression, and anxiety comes from the unknown, it comes from uncertainty. But when we actually pen it down, we put it down on paper, we actually get to see it, right? It becomes a lot more tangible, it becomes a lot more achievable. And in that way, it really helps to curb the fear or the anxiety that we have towards specific something, right? It gives us a sense of purpose, meaning, and being up to something. I'm going to share a little bit about this in the next slide, but I think this is a very good part when we talk about goal setting, right? That sense of purpose, that sense of meaning is very, very, very important because a lot of times we forget our purpose, we forget our sense of meaning. And as humans, we are all searching for our purpose on this earth. We're all searching for meaning, right? It might be joining a community, it might be helping out at a old folks home, it might be donating clothes or money to a certain organization. But those are the things that really gives us that sense of purpose and meaning, right? And the last one, it makes your life feel easier. Don't you feel so? When we have goals written down, it just seems like, okay, at least for this first quarter of the year, I've got things a lot more sorted, especially for those of us who like to do lists, right? When we actually see it written down, it feels like, okay, now I can kind of go through this and get through this, right? All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the arrival fallacy, and I think this is a very common problem that we have all experienced, including myself. I also see this a lot in my clients. This is basically this false assumption that when we reach that specific goal, then only we find happiness. Has anyone experienced this before? Like there's almost like a build up to that goal, and then when we actually reach that goal, it feels okay, all right, I'm happy, but it's not really a long-term happiness kind of feeling, right? It's just for that moment, right? It could be a couple of different things. It could be because we haven't defined what the why and the hows were, right? We maybe haven't defined why it's important to us, but I think it's also ingrained in us. It's ingrained in our culture that we will only be happy when we have this fancy job, or we have this career, and we have this position, and we are making this amount of money, or if we get married, or only if we have kids, then only we'll be happy. But I think Nurul is absolutely right. It is a temporary feeling. It's not something that lasts for too long, right? So, what is really going to last long term is that sense of purpose and meaning, doing the things that really brings us purpose. Okay? All right, I'm just conscious of the time, so I'm just going to move a little bit faster. So, why does goal setting matter? It helps us improve our focus, it helps us feel a lot more motivated, but it's also a really great way for us to measure progress as well, right? Okay, now I'm going to get you guys to do a personal audit now. I'm going to get Shannon to help us share some the polls in the chat box, and all you have to do is vote. Okay, take some time to think before you vote. So you have a range of 1 to 5. One is I hate it, I don't really like where my life is at this point of time in this specific category, and 5 is I love it, I enjoy it, and I like it, right? So you're going to kind of audit yourself a little bit. You're going to audit different aspects of your life. Yeah. So the first one is health. Okay, so feel free to vote. I'd like to see your answers here, and then we'll see the majority, right? 1 to 5, how would you rate your health right now? Okay, the majority says a 4, right? So we've got 36% of you guys who voted, who is at a 4. Awesome. Okay, and then probably a smaller percentage, like 4%, 7%, where it probably does require a little bit more work there, right? Awesome. Okay, we go on to the next one, Shannon. The next category. I'm just going to choose 8 from here because 10 is a little bit a lot. Okay, work. Let's do a vote for work, a personal audit. Okay, awesome. So great to see. So 39% of you guys are at around a 4, that you like what you do. Um, and about 12 or 8% of you guys are at a 5, which is, you love it. And then we have a small percentage, about 4% of people who don't really like what they do. So hopefully this gives you an idea of areas that you need to work on, especially in this category of work. Yeah. All right. So we go on to the next one, which is love life. Let's do a personal audit on love life. Okay. Ooh, fancy. So we've got quite a number of you guys voting at a 4 or 5 mark, which is really awesome. So you're really satisfied. You are happy where you are in your relationship or your marriage or your partnership, right? And then we do have quite a small percentage of people that are not as happy, and that shows me that probably some things need to change for this year, 2024, in that area. Yeah. Okay. Next one, friendships. How would you rate your friendships? Mm. Okay, all right. Majority at a 4 or 5 mark. Yeah, awesome. Good to see that you are cultivating this supportive kind of network as well through this year, 2024. Okay, cool. And the next category, Shannon, which is fun, right? The play, the creativity, the hobbies. How would you rate that currently? Okay, cool. So we've got quite a number of you at a 4 or 5, which is awesome. So that shows me that you guys are really doing some self-care, right? Self-love, self-care, and activities that bring you joy. I think fun is really important. Next, spirituality, right? This differs for everyone because spirituality might be defined very differently. But yeah, Okay, so about 45% are at a 4 or a 5. Majority at a 4. Okay, cool. And the last one, which is the meaning and purpose. Ah, okay. All right. Majority at a 4 and a 3, right? So I think still looking. Some of you are still searching for that sense of meaning, sense of purpose, right? Thank you for sharing, everyone. I think this is a very quick audit for us to, really look at ways that we can, improve, right, in our life. Certain areas where might need a little bit more of a push, right, and some areas where we're doing quite well, right? All right, so we are just moving on. I'm just conscious of the time again. So, one of the things that you can start doing is this technique called stop, continue, and start. And ask yourself these questions in the different areas of your life. So, in the area of health and wellness, career, money, and school or work, relationships, love and friendship, fun and happiness. And the last one is purpose and meaning. What are some of the things that you're going to stop doing for this year? Right? What are some of the things that you want to continue that has been working for yourself last year onto 2024? And what are some of the things that you want to now start doing for this coming year? Right? So I think this is a really great technique for us to take a bit of time and really just reflect, right? A time of reflection, even as we do mindfulness. This could be a really great activity to do for journaling. I see some questions here about journaling as well. So I think this is a really great question to kind of sit down and ask yourself at the start of your day or the end of your day. Some of the areas that you want to stop, continue, and start. Sort of like a traffic light, right? Wait for stop, continue, and then start, which is green. Okay. And lastly, I'm just going to close with some questions that you guys can ask yourself for this year. What is working in your life right now and what's not working? Okay, so where are some things that we need to add on, and what are some of the things that we need to subtract from our life? What are you willing to do in order for something to change in your life, and what are you not willing to do? So what are some of the negotiables or non-negotiables, right? What are you willing to go the extra mile for to change, and what is a no-no for you? Again, it's very subjective and it differs from person to person. So I think it's important for us to be kind to ourselves, takes the time as well, and also not compare. All right? Okay. So I am wrapping up right now. I'm just going to share some resources and support for you guys from Naluri. So if you do have your phones with you, if you're using your laptop, you can scan the QR code. For those of you who are using your phone, don't worry, we will be sharing the PDF with you. And you will get the links, the clickable links in the PDF, right? So I think Shannon, she's already sent it in the handout. So if you click on the third tab, which is the handout tab, feel free to download the PDF for today's presentation. So this is the Naluri app. We do have the mental health assessment. So in case you are concerned about your mental health and you want to do some assessments to figure things out, feel free to check it out using the QR code. It is anonymous and free as well. Okay, we also have the free 24/7 Naluri care line and text line. So this is managed by our licensed and registered counselors. And we do have counselors from different backgrounds. So depending on the language requirement that you have, we would be able to find a therapist or a counselor to support you. So you'll notice that you have the numbers for different parts of the world. One is the care line, and one is the text line, which is the WhatsApp line, right? So 24/7. So at any time of the day, if you do require any support, feel free to reach out to our counselors as well. Yeah. Okay. Then we also have the one-on-one consultations. So those of you who are looking for a therapist or you're looking for a mental health coach, feel free to scan the QR code. It will take you to the page for you to actually make an appointment. You'll see from that page we have a list of different therapists and their specializations, right? So specifically, what kind of concerns or issues that you have, you can read up and then choose your therapist from there based on the schedules that you see that's available. So I am also on here. So for those of you who are keen to speak to me one-on-one after today's session, that's the right way to go. Okay. All right, and now we have Naluri app, but we also have Naluri on the website as well. So if you're keen to check us out on the web or even to download the app, for those of you who don't have the Naluri app, feel free to check it out. There are so many resources on the app that you have access to. So not just your mental health coach, but you can also speak to different coaches as well. For your information, we do have fitness coaches, we have career coaches, we have financial coaches as well, with doctors, pharmacists. We have a wide range of consultants on the app. So if you're keen to check that out, please do scan the QR code as well. Okay, I think that's all for my part. I hope I didn't go too fast, but is there any questions? I open to the floor if you have anything to add. You also notice that we have a feedback form on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. So if you're interested to give us feedback and for us to improve, feel free to let us know as well. You can give us feedback on the session for today or even future sessions in terms of what you're looking for, some of the topics that you would like to see us talk about. Feel free to share your feedback in the section there. Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you so much for coming. All right. I'm told that we have a question. Have a great day for those of you who are leaving the call. Okay, so we have a question from Hong Kar. And this question is, what is the purpose and benefits of journaling? All right, so that's a really, really great question. Journaling helps us to process our thoughts and our emotions as well. It is considered a mindful activity, a mindfulness activity, right? It helps us to really pen down some of these thoughts and emotions that we feel. Now, some of us, we don't see a therapist. And even if we do see a therapist, we're seeing a therapist maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks, right? And that is not sufficient time sometimes to really process everything that's going on in your life. So journaling is a really great way for you to actually see areas in your life that you need to improve, but also areas in your life that you didn't know were there, right? For me, when I started journaling, I realized a lot of things that I didn't realize, right? I thought I knew or I thought I had figured it out. So I think that's a really great practice to cultivate. It does take a bit of time. So for those of you who don't journal, start really small. You can start with a gratitude journal, right? So every day list down, perhaps in point forms, right? 5 things that you are grateful for today, like at the end of your day, right? Or 5 things that you're looking forward to for the start of your day. So start with that and see how you go. And then from there, you can check out some journaling prompts that are available online for you to practice as well. Right? So I hope that answers your question. Thank you so much for those of you who have been here. Thank you for joining the call. It was great getting to know all of you and also sharing your insight as well into today's session. Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone. Have a great rest of the year, and hopefully, this encourages you to set some goals for this year as well. Okay, so Nisa says, check out bullet journaling. Yeah, that's a really great way to start journaling as well. It's very simple. She said you can search on YouTube for more information. Thank you so much, Nisa, for sharing. Okay, Raihan says, personally use Muji planners. They have daily entries on the left page and a blank page on the right. I usually use the blank page to do a weekly review of my week. Awesome. Wow, she used it every day for 2023 and she's using it again for 2024. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. I think that's a really great um, suggestion. Everyone's going to go out and buy a Muji planner. All right. Nadia says she opted for a plain notebook to include various small mementos like subway tickets, pictures. Wow, that's really nice. Love that idea. Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, and hopefully, we'll see you back soon. Thanks, Sarah. Awesome. Ah, thank you. Have a great year ahead. Thanks, Rebecca. Have a good rest of your day. Just a reminder, if you guys are still on the call and you have a bit more time, feel free to click on the feedback section, which is at the bottom left hand corner. We would love to hear your feedback as well. So let us know what you think and what you feel. Thank you so much. Okay, so we've got any more questions before we end? We've got another 1 minute or so. Feel free to put it in the chat box. Thank you. Have a good rest of your day. Bye, everyone.